Okay, we're starting our next unit, which is on probability. And we're going to go ahead, we're going to take a deep dive on probability. And so today we're just going to scratch the very surface of it. What does probability mean? Chance behavior is unpredictable. Right? If we flip a coin while it's in the air, you have no idea whether it's coming up heads or tails. Now, in general, if we do flip a coin, let's go back here. If we do flip a coin, we know there are two possible outcomes, heads and tails. If we flip the coin. So there are two outcomes. Each outcome is equally likely, so the chance that you'll get heads is 1 out of 2, and the chances that you'll get tails is 1 out of 2. And we'll get into all these probabilities. The chance of getting any one card is 1 out of 52. The chance of getting any one die roll is 1 out of 6. So forth and so on. But we need to at least have that to talk going forward. So in the short room, it's very unpredictable. I can flip the coin and get heads. I can flip the coin again and get heads. The probability said half the time I should get tails. But that's not how it works. In the short term, you'll get these weird streaks. It said if we flip the coin many, many times, if we flip the coin 100,000 times, approximately 50,000 of the time, we would get heads, and approximately 50,000 of the times we flipped it, we would get tails. But in the short term, there's going to be lots and lots and lots and lots of variability. And we'll get into this later, where we will see that if we see regularness and we don't see weird little streaks in the short term, then the data itself was probably fake. Now, one of the cool things is that all probability is between 0 and 1, right? Probability of is always less than. You cannot have probability greater than 1. Either it always occurs or it never occurs. If we get a probability that's over 1, we made a mistake. If we get a negative probability, we made a mistake. And we'll generally write them as decimal. So we say the probability of getting heads is 0.5. And what we're going to do is we're going to get into a formal language of this, which is that the probability heads equals 0.5 is actually how we would write that. And that's the probability of that outcome. The probability of the outcome of heads is 0.5. And that's the basic gist of it, and that's the starting point we need to have to start tomorrow. But in the short term, let's talk about a few things. And this is the one that we need to get off our chest early. And the gambler's fallacy is that, quote, something blank is due. And this is a common misconception. So, and I'm going to jump a little bit ahead here, but the chances of getting heads 3 times in a row is 0.5 times 0.5, probability of 3 heads, times 0.5. The probability of 3 heads is 0.5, or 0.125. So it's not very likely. It's only a 12% chance. The probability of 4 heads is that same thing to the 4th power, or 0.5 times 125, or 0.0625. And so the gambler's fallacy doesn't take into account that the probability of something that's already occurred is 1. So my probability of throwing 4 heads in a row, or tossing 4 heads in a row, is 0.0625. But let's say you come into my room and I flip the coin 3 times. And I get heads all 3 times. Boop, boop, boop. And I stop and I say, what do you think is going to come up next time? And the gambler's fallacy is you would be like, well, tails, clearly, because you flipped heads 3 times in a row. But the coin doesn't know what happened. And in the short term, there's going to be irregularities. The bottom line is this has already happened. The probability of that happening is 1. The probability of predicting that it would happen in advance is this 0.125. But once it's happened, it has happened. The probability of it occurring is 1. So if I've already flipped heads 3 times, the probability of me getting heads on the next toss is 1/2. And the gambler's fallacy comes up all the time. And the key to understanding it is that the probability of something that is, probability is predicting of something that's going to happen. The probability of something happening is 1. The probability that I will be at school tomorrow is unpredictable. The probability that I was at school today is guaranteed because I already showed up. Or if you want to predict an election, right? We could say there's a 60% chance that someone might win this upcoming election, but there's a 100% chance that the incumbent won the last one. It already happened. So, and that gives us the myth of short-term regularity, is that which one of these coin tosses are more likely? Well, the answer is that if we'll see this later, we'll start doing tree diagrams, but if you flip the coin once, you get heads, flip the coin twice, you get tails, but each one of these occurrences has a 1/2 chance of occurring. So getting this exact coin flip here, in this exact order, is 1 out of 64. The probability of getting each one of these coin flips in this exact order is 1 out of 2 each time, and is also 1 out of 64. And what it turns out is that if we flip a penny 6 times, there are 64 different outcomes, each one equally probable. So there is this coin toss going heads, tails, heads, tails, heads, tails, heads, tails, is as likely as going heads, 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 tails, tails, tails. It's just in the very long run, when we flip the coin many, 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 many times, excuse the interruption for the announcements.
There's a flu clinic.
Is that if we do it many, 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 many times, half the times we'll get heads and half the time we'll get tails. But we're not saying anything about the order that happens in the short term. And we'll get into this much, much more. But we need to start thinking about not what we thought was going to happen. Stuff that's happened, however improbable, has already occurred. And so we only talk about probability about things that are going to happen in the future. And we'll get into this, and we're going to start playing around with flipping dice and flipping coins and dealing cards a lot in this unit. So I will see you next class.